I don't even know how to pronounce your second name. Not you, Michael. I'm pretty confident I can pronounce yours. Olivier's. I've never had a go at pronouncing your second name. Is it it looks like Larvor, but I think it should be more like Larvor.
It's Larvor.
Larvor.
And it's
Larvor.
Larvor. It's a Brittany name, and it means
dick.
Yeah, that too. An idiot as well, but it means in Britain, Breton, it means that comes from the earth.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's fucking ridiculous. Anyway. Michael, glad that you joined us.
I've heard better names described. You could have made something up. You could have said it means the king of the world in control of everything, and you almost bowed to me. And Tim and I would have been like, yeah, that sounds great. But instead, from the earth, like a potato.
So, sure we would have been saying that's great. I'm fairly sure we would have been saying that's great. I don't know. I can't say categorically because it would have to move back in time to check my reaction. But I'm fairly confident that wouldn't have been my reaction.
So,
anyway, let me...
Now, 1 second, because he has to, I'm sure he knows that, Michael knows that, but I'm not the megalomaniac here. Tim is. He's the one with the grander issues here. I'm the down-to-earth one, kind of. Anyway, carry on.
Is this relevant to anything?
Nothing.
You don't even know what I was going to say, is it?
Should we do the clap again?
Absolutely not.
I've listened to some of your other podcasts.
Really?
I nearly quit. I nearly decided not to do it. I wish I hadn't. But that's what happens when you turn up an hour early.
Yeah. That was probably not very wise. But let me just say this. We started with a beginner's mind, with an empty mind. Olivier still got an empty mind. We're trying to fill that up for him bit by bit. But it's, we're learning as we go, and you're a professional, so that's why we wanted you on the program, because you're a professional.
Yeah,
in fact,
right.
Let me introduce Michael just from a personal standpoint, if I may, because anybody that's been coached by me, you can probably blame Heppell, because when I was toying, I wasn't even toying with a career in life coaching. I bought How to Be Brilliant, which was that your first book?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, but I actually bought the audio version through Red Audio, was it? I can't remember now.
That's right. It was a live 1 hour special.
Yes, which was the first time I heard the fear, which what does fear stand for? And that alone was worth me buying the CD, because obviously people say false evidence appearing real, but you had a woman, I don't know if this is apocryphal, but who cares, a blue-rinsed woman on the front row said, fuck everything and run.
It was, let me tell you, that story is 100% true. You can't make that up.
Good.
But since then, I've probably heard about another 5 or 6 people who claim that they had Eileen in the front row, who also said to them, fuck everything and run, which is fine. But I wish they'd credit the source sometimes, because it was my very first professional paid event with the British Lung Foundation. Yeah, it was amazing.
That is awesome. And I've heard it since. I've heard other people do it. So that's a shame. It's like on Pinterest when people put quotes up and they don't attribute it, so they make it sound like they've said it. Yes, I was the first person to say, be the change you want to see in the world. Well, I have a dream.
And everybody knows it was actually Olivier who said that.
Yes, it was. It was. So, matey, tell us a bit about yourself. But for people that don't know you over here, I know there's only a handful, but
so I would describe myself myself as a gap filler, which means that I find out where people are or where organizations are, where they want to get to, and my job is to help them to fill the gap. And I always want to do that as quickly as possible, as economically as possible, and with as much fun as possible. So I started to professionally, if you like, do this 20 years ago, working for another personal development company. I used to run programs for kids, and I used to teach teachers. And once you've taught teachers, you can teach anybody. They are the toughest group of people, because I don't know if you know this, but teachers already know everything. So suddenly to stand up in front of them and say, look, I'm going to show you how to do this a little bit better, or to be a bit better at that, it was a bit of a challenge. But the right people turn up in your life at the right time, and I met an amazing guy called Professor John Macbeth. And the thing that was great about John is that he knew why it worked. And I think you're very good with this as well, Tim, is that it's not just a theory, it's like, where's the research to back up the theory? And it's not just a case of, well, if you use positive language, you get better results. Well, why do you get better results? Where's the backup to prove that type of thing? And John was the guy who gave me the white papers to read, and he said, look, Michael, this is going to seem very boring, and you probably won't use a lot of it, but you only ever teach the tip of the iceberg. You learn the iceberg, but you teach the tip of the iceberg. And I thought, wow, God, that's brilliant. That's what I want to do. And I ended up having a little fallout with the people who I was working for. I was working for a personal development company that weren't interested in developing people who worked for them, and thought, time to do my own thing. So I moved back to my native northeast of England. I started Michael Heppell Limited with a goal to positively influence 1 million lives, and that was 17 years ago. So that's how I started. And since then, I've done all sorts of things, but we can come to that later on if you're still interested.
We won't be. But, you know, yes. if we are.
I'll make something up.
Yeah, yes, do so. I'm gonna hand over to Olivier, because he's kind of looking like all cute and like he wants to say something of importance.
Not really. No, yeah. So actually, did you influence millions of lives? Did you do it? You said this is your goal.
It depends how you measure it. I mean, the idea was 1 million people, and we decided right from the start that we'd have a way of measuring it, and it would be either people who saw me live, people who heard an audio program, or people who read a book. And then we thought we'd change read a book to buy a book, because people buy them and don't read them sometimes. But if they've we think if they've got it in their hands, it means that they probably want to do something with it, and hopefully we'll have had some kind of an impact. And so if we measure it that way, last year we hit the target of 1 million people.
Fantastic.
Oh, 1 million.
Really fantastic.
Good. So I have one question for you, actually, because you're a writer, right? You write books, yeah? And you're a motivational speaker, you're a coach. Yeah, all this. So how you introduce yourself? You know, when you meet someone, you know, what?
Well, it's always that complicated one, isn't it? So when people say, "What do you do?" I say, "I teach people how to be brilliant." And usually it makes them ask the next question, which is, "Well, how do you do that?" And I say, "Well, I write books and I speak and I do a little bit of coaching." So that it's better than, because nobody wants to know that you're a motivational speaker. It's awful, isn't it? It's the worst thing at a party. What do you do? I'm a motivational speaker. Oh, God.
No, the worst thing's being a life coach.
That's exactly. Well, that's exactly.
But you know, we've laughed about this before, Tim, because I in the UK, it feels like about 1 in 3 people is a life coach.
Yeah.
And it's just that thing where suddenly it's like, hey, I know what I'll do. I'll be a life coach, and then they sign up to a 12-week course, but it's not even the whole week. It's just Wednesday nights at the local further education college. They do 2 hours. They walk out and they kind of go, right, I'm going to start and change your life, and I'll give you your first 5 sessions for free. So it's it's killed what the really good people are doing and have been doing for ages. And so when people talk about coaching, I don't use the term life coach. Even though it probably is life coaching, I'll find myself saying stuff like, "Well, I'm a success coach," or you know, I do more of that type of stuff because of the way that other people have caused the problems.
Yeah. Or is that the last prawn vol avant I see? I'll be back in a moment. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I know it's a term. I don't think we've touched on this before, but I don't think there's a worse term than life coach, because it's so misunderstood. Like it's like, you know, the times I hear, you know, literally the worst reason to be a life coach after doing it for the money is, well, my friend Susan said I was a great listener.
Yeah.
and I like a good gossip, and what could possibly go wrong when I'm intervening in people's lives? What's that you say? You feel like you've got 1,000 staples inside your head. Of course I'll take you on as a client. And by the way, that was a genuine inquiry I got once. And another coach said, well, why didn't you take them on? Seriously? I've got 1,000 staples inside my head. And you think I should be taking them on for life coaching? They need a whole team.
They need a magnet.
Yeah.
They need a massive magnet.
Yeah, for God's sake, don't go for an MRI. You're going to have your head ripped to shreds.
Or don't go to the scrapyard.
Yeah.
Bang! Oh, lovely.
Yeah. Listen, we're determined to make these podcasts about me. Basically, no, I'm determined. We're determined to make them a little bit just different. So it's not about just we don't want to do just an interview. Anybody can do just an interview. I'm sure you've done, certainly hundreds of them, I would imagine. But having said that, because so normally we don't do any research, do we, Olivier? Olivier does actually do a little bit of research. I don't do any research whatsoever, but I didn't need to with you because I've read all your books. And here's what I want to say without wanting to get too brown-nosy, because sometimes I've had conversations about your books and writing to other people, and I've used it to demonstrate something that I'm very poor at. I often forget that other people don't know what I know. So when I'm writing a blog post, without wanting to sound patronising, I can be writing above people's heads. Do you know what I mean? It's just like,
I know exactly.
And then I read when you wrote Flip It, and Flip It is an entire book around reframing. So this is my response when I read Flip It. Fuck it, I could have written this. This isn't fair. It's just taking an entire book on reframing, which is I'm all talking. But you have got a great ability for forgetting what you know and talking to the average. Is that conscious, or is that just because you've forgotten what you know?
Do you know, I think there's a few things. First of all, people often say, oh, will I enjoy that book? What's it like? And I say, listen, it's a very easy read because it's written by a very simple person. And I really mean that. I know the technical stuff, but yeah, I just find it so boring when I read books that have got reference after reference after reference after reference. And I think, you know what, you can go on Google and you can look up the references any day. And I'm going to credit a source if somebody's got a story or something like that.
Sure,
but the big stuff that's out there, I think that people want to know, how is it going to affect me? They want to know an interesting story around it. And then really, really simply, step 1, do this. Step 2, do that. Step 3, do that. And then something will be different. And if you test it out, you'll get some results. And if you just read it, well, you'll feel a bit better about it. And if you've just bought the book, well, that suits me as well. But Flip It's an interesting one, because that whole book came around from using that expression whilst coaching people. I used to say, let's flip it. Yeah, let's just flip it. And I know in the States it means about flipping properties and things like that often, but it was just the thing that we said, flip it. And what if we were to flip that? What if we were to turn it around a little bit? And then when our wonderful publishers, Pearson, said, we need another book from you. Have you got any ideas? I said, I've got this idea for a book called Flip It, which of course is like a complete lie. I had no idea what the book called Flip It would be like. But I thought, I've got another book deal coming up, this'll do. And they said, oh, great, could you write it in a month? And I was like, yeah, no problem at all. And what I do is when I write, I actually write with my wife, with Christine. And so the setup with Christine and I is really good, because she co-writes all the books with me. She runs our business. She manages our staff. She does all the event production when we do big events. I get all the credit. It's really, really good. And people don't know about her. But we sat down and thought, can we write this book in a month? Yes, we can. And we just started to pull together stories and ideas, dumped it all together, and then tried to form it into some kind of a narrative that people would pick up and enjoy. And so luckily for us, I mean, it went crazy. And it actually became a Sunday Times #1 bestseller, which was kind of way beyond anything I'd expected.
Yeah, fantastic.
When is your #1 coming, Tim? Your Sunday Times #1 book?
Shut the fuck up. Anyway, that's Michael. I think.
Well, basically, Tim, what you could do absolutely brilliantly, like everybody else, is just do the thing where you can have a number one book on Amazon, which I'm sure you've had, because if you've written a book and you haven't managed to get a number one on Amazon for an hour, so that you can then say I was a number one Amazon bestseller. I know somebody recently who wrote a book, and they did this big thing. I set the goal to be number one on Amazon, and I am. And this is really bizarre, and he won't mind me saying this because it's really funny, but it was a personal development book. It's a great book, actually, very, very good. For some reason, they put it under sex and relationships, right? And he got a number one in sex and relationships. There's nothing at all in the book about nothing at all about sex and relationships, but one of the categories was that, and it went a number one, and he thought, sod it, I've done it. I've got a number one book on Amazon on sex.
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, you see a lot of, I get a lot of inquiries from people saying, would you, promote a book for a day or for an hour or whatever, just to it's gaming the system. It's like when Tim Ferriss's The 4-Hour Body came out.
Yeah.
He'd had 150 5-star reviews before the book was even published.
Brilliant.
Talk about gaming the system,
Yeah.
It's just like, it becomes ridiculous when it's like that. But I want to ask you another thing as well. And Olivier, please feel free to dive in, because obviously I'm a lot more familiar with Michael's work than you are. So you want to dive in now when I've got something really interesting?
No, because I wanted to ask, this brilliant thing, this brilliant. How do you define brilliant according to you? Because I just listened to a podcast of yours, and you said good is not good enough today, and you need to be brilliant. Mm-hmm. Can you explain me this concept now?
Well, I think what it's about is if it's important to you, good isn't good enough. That's what I really say. It's because I think anybody can. It's obviously it's a term, isn't it? You're like saying brilliant. It's been the very, very best that you can be. And perhaps in the example that I'll give when I demonstrate what brilliance looks like is I talk about. 2.5 years ago now, I was very lucky to go to the Olympics in London, and I went to see the men's 100 meters final, and it was really extraordinary because this is when they showed the big screens inside of the stadium. They said, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the men's 100 meters final." Everyone's like, "Yay!" And it said over 1 million people applied for tickets for this event. And everyone's like, "Whoa!" And they said, "We currently think this is the most watched sporting event of all time. There's well over 1 billion people watching live around the world now. Give them a wave." And everyone's like, "Whoa!" Throwing themselves around. And then they said, "So, the next race is the men's 100 meters final. It will last for less than 10 seconds. Brace yourselves." And everyone's like, "Whoa!" And the whole thing went quiet. And then the athletes are there. And then, boom, the gun went. And one guy went over the line a fraction of a second faster than anybody else. And that person was Usain Bolt, fastest man in the world. And everybody knew that he was going to win. It was amazing. Wow, big atmosphere. And I tell this story when I do events. And I say, "Who won?" And everybody goes, "Usain Bolt." And I said, "And who came second?" And everybody goes, the other Jamaican, Thingy. Was it Blake? Was it? And I say, it was a fraction of a second slower than the person who won. That was all, a fraction. But what difference did it make in their lives? Well, Usain Bolt's probably made $50 million in the last 2 years with his sponsorship deals. He has an opportunity to run in any race meeting anywhere in the world, to have the best facilities, the best equipment. Everything is laid on for him. And the guy who came second, what does he get? I say it's a Lucozade contract. Could do with a little bit more energy. And the person who came third... Gatorade. Sorry, yeah, let's make this global. A Gatorade contract. And the person who came third... People don't even know who that is. And if you came 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th or 8th, we see them at home, we think, didn't they do well? Didn't they do well just to qualify? But they're like, damn, I spent 5 years preparing for this moment and I came 4th or 5th. So what I'm saying is that the difference between doing that really good job and brilliance is just a small shift. It's a very small amount. It's doing the things that other people aren't prepared to do. It's kind of sometimes taking a little bit of a risk, but it has to be important to you because the commitment is huge. And I'll ask the question, I'll say to people, what do you want to be brilliant at? And the answer comes back, everything. I say, well, I'm sorry, but you can't be brilliant at everything. You've got to choose what you want. So I chose, my 3 things, because I think there's 3 things you can do. Number 1, I want to be a brilliant dad. So I've got kids, so I want to be a brilliant dad, and I want to make sure that I'm going to provide absolutely brilliant parenting. I'm in a relationship, I'm married, so I want to be brilliant as a husband. And then the third thing is I want to be a brilliant speaker. I want to stand on stage and be described as a brilliant speaker. And people say, well, you write books. Do you not want to be a brilliant author? And I say people who are brilliant authors only write books. That's what they do. They are 100% committed to writing books, and that's all they do. And I don't want to do that. I want to write a book in a month and get it out there and get it published and get it sold. And it will have mistakes in it. It won't be as well researched as, Malcolm Gladwell stuff. And it won't be perhaps as glamorous as somebody else's. But it doesn't matter to me, because the three things that are important, that's what I'm going to focus on. That was a long answer to a short question.
No, I'm thinking at the same time, because my question, when I have in mind, is when do you know? When do you know when you're brilliant, actually? Because it's we have always this drive to do better and better and better and better, and okay, good is not good enough, and then you're brilliant, and then you need to be excellent, and then it's very stage when you say, okay, this is it, this is where I am, and this is okay, I'm good enough now, or I'm brilliant enough. You see what I mean? Because is it like this almost competition that is always coming, as you mentioned? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I would say don't worry about it.
Don't worry. Yeah.
because it's one of those things. If you know that you're doing absolutely your very, very best for something, and you've got that level of commitment, and you're doing the stuff that other people don't do, and you're learning about it and you're applying it, you usually feel pretty satisfied with that. And if you're dissatisfied with it, then it probably goes back to one of the things that Tim's taught me a lot about, which should be core values. And actually, you've chosen the wrong thing they want to be brilliant at. Like, I know people who've said, I want to run a brilliant business. And they've done everything they can to want to run a brilliant business. And actually, do you know what they really want? They want to be brilliant at fishing. That's what they want to be brilliant at. And they want to go and spend some time with their pals and sit around a lake and learn how to fish. And they thought that by building a business and then selling it, they would have more time to do that. And it's that old, we've heard the story a million times about the guy who, teaches the guy, you have a cannon factory and you can have ships and all that type of stuff. And then you can sell your business and then you can have time to spend time with your family and your friends. He says, well, that's what I do. So once you understand what drives somebody and why they truly want to be brilliant at something, then it's kind of almost like lighting a blue touch paper. Boom, they go for it and they can do some extraordinary things.
I do think that Olivier's question demonstrated that he's not brilliant at interviewing, though. So that's cool. That's something. He's got room to work on that. Let's just say it like that. There's room for.
I thought it was a great question, Olivier. I really did. And my question to you would be, what do you want to be brilliant at?
So actually, this is something, because I was. Not that I don't like you, actually, Michael. I like you a lot because you have this genuine humanity that transpires. But as soon as people come with, you need to be brilliant, you need to be excellent, you need to be the best at what you can. There's always this other book that I've read, which you maybe read as well. It's coming from Brené Brown, which is the power of vulnerability, And what she said is basically you need to accept yourself as you are, and that you are good enough as you are, right? So this is another perspective which is kind of resonates with me, because in this society where people are very, very, very focusing on success, being successful and going forward, I think I was kind of debating in my head, brilliant, absolutely. You need to be the best and at something that you like to do, and to reach your full potential. This is why when we do coaching, what coaching is all about. But at the same time, I have these voices coming from this Brené Brown person that says you need to accept yourself as you are. Right? Do you see what I mean, Michael? Is it something that is?
I do, but that's why I said it has to be important to you. If it's important to you, you'll do it. It's like when so there's you two guys, you're coaches. That's what you do, and if I was to say to you, is that it, you're done, you don't want to learn anything else about coaching, you don't want to move yourself to the next level, I just want to get away with what I can, as long as I'm getting paid, that's fine. It's not what drives you. What drives what drives you guys is thinking, right, you know what, I can definitely be better at this, and I know for a fact that I can help more people, I can help them in a better way, and I can do it in a cooler way, and it interests me and it fascinates me, and that's why you have this drive to want to do it. Now, I know some people who are like that about painting windows. Right? We had a guy painting our house, and he's brilliant. I mean, brilliant at painting windows, to the point where I was watching him and I had this I said, Stephen, does this excite you? He goes, Michael, there's nothing. When I look back at that and I see that job that I've done there, it's just amazing. And he uses different types of filler, and he rubs things down so well, and his primer's brilliant, and then he gets everything so perfect, and he's just so detailed, and he absolutely loves it. And he's twice the price of other painters and decorators, and we won't use anybody else, because his passion's there, his enthusiasm's there, and I hate painting. So I have no desire to want to even be good at painting when there's somebody else out there who wants to be brilliant.
Wouldn't it be better there if you just painted the frames rather than the windows themselves? Because now you can't see out your house, so that's a bit of a downer. But anyway,
that was a shocking joke. That was like a poor joke getting no results.
It got results for me. Internally, I was chuckling. I want to go back to something Olivier said, though, because I don't think the two things that you talked about were mutually exclusive at all. I think when Michael was talking about being brilliant and you're talking about the Brené Brown, being accepting of yourself, I don't think you can... I think it's possible to want to be brilliant and still being accepting of yourself. It's just that wherever you are at that particular point, you aspire to brilliance, but it's not being attached. You've not, your happiness isn't based on achieving that. It's not like a must-have. It's just that I want to be better than I am now. I want to be the best I can possibly be. But if I can't be Usain Bolt, if I'm going to be, somebody or whatever, then that's fine. As long as I gave it my best shot. It's like the 4 agreements, the Don Miguel Ruiz. One of the things is, do your best. Your best is going to vary every day or whatever. Yeah. Do you agree?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. But the key thing is always at the end of the day, it has to be, in order to get brilliance. I mean, when I talk about brilliance, I'm talking about being in a very, very small percentage of people who are that good at what they do. The commitment is huge. There's no doubt about it. There's no easy way. There's no shortcut. Anybody, I'll stand on stage and I'll say, if you ever have someone who stands up here and says, all you have to do, chase them away, because there's no all you have to do. It's a scrap. It's a fight. So my job is to give people tools to help them with that scrap. Because if I'm going to be in a fight, I want to be tooled up. I want to make sure that I'm going to, go in there with all the best gear and everything possible to make sure that I can do that. And I feel my responsibility to people is to say, first of all, help them to find what they want to be brilliant at, then give them some tools and some ideas to help them to get there.
Only an Englishman would say, if I'm going to go into a fight, I'm going to be tooled up and use it in a way like that, and I love it. I was listening to some Doug Stanhope the other day. I don't know if you'll know him, Michael. He's not very big in the UK, although he said he was touring in the UK, and he said England is the only, or Britain is the only country on earth where glass is a verb. It's like he said, nobody uses it that way in this country. But anyway,
do you know what? Let me tell you. I'll tell you something funny that happened to me this week, and you're the only kind. I'm going to write a newsletter about this because I think it's worth a bit of banter on it. But I was we were in Leeds. Our daughter's living in Leeds at the moment, and she's having a great time there. And they have a Christmas market. You know what these Christmas markets are like? They're just packed full of crappy stands and people selling overpriced alcohol, but it's very festive and the lights are there and the music's playing. And there was 6 of us. There was myself, Christine, our son and his girlfriend, our daughter and her boyfriend, and we're shuffling around, and we were just at this crossroads point, and I heard this voice behind me saying, "Excuse me, and it was a woman's voice, and I was kind of a bit confused about what was happening, and I turned around to have a look at what was happening, and her husband punched me. Right?
What?
Like a proper hard punch right in the kidneys, in the back. And I've never had a good kidney punch for years, so I couldn't actually remember what it was like, but the pain I did that sort of collapsing thing. And then the guy was wandering off, and I suddenly built a bit of courage and went, "Hey, what was that about?" Right, which is the best I could do. And my son was like, "Let's go get him." I'm saying, "No, we can't do that." And it was just the weirdest thing that people talk about getting hit randomly in public. I actually had that experience and haven't had it for years.
I got drop kicked in the back at Southall Agricultural Show once. A kid just came up behind and he was practicing his drop kicks. Apparently, he'd been learning, and he decided my back was a great target, and it apparently was because he hit it dead centre. I mean, I had to applaud his drop kick. It was excellent, even though I was face down in the dirt at the time, wondering what the fuck had happened. But other than that, that's so bizarre, isn't it?
Yes. So I thought I'd like to share it with my friends.
People are weird.
I'm fucking boring. I've never been beaten up or nothing, actually. So.
Oh, we can arrange that.
You're tough.
No bother.
Please.
I know plenty. I know some people who'd hit
away first.
I was going to say they'd hit you just for being French. They wouldn't need any other reason. And for being pretty. That's the second reason.
Got the same flag as the Italians. It's a white cross on a white background, isn't it, mate?
Not going there.
No, I know. Don't worry, Michael. Michael, can I just say, in the first 4 podcasts, we have we haven't attacked Bali and
Madagascar.
I think there's Madagascar. Yeah, they're the only 2 countries that we haven't we haven't denigrated at this stage. So don't worry about it too much. I'm on the hit list of just about.
I can't do. I have international editions of my books to sell.
I can see. Behind Michael is a big bookshelf of books. I think they're all the ones of his own that they couldn't sell.
I refuse to have them pulped. I bought them all.
I should have brought down the Chinese version of How to Be Rich and Happy, because when I got sent the Chinese version of it, even my own name was in Chinese, so they could have sent me anything. They'd probably sent me some book. It was nothing to do with How to Be Rich and Happy. It's just like this random book. I have no fucking idea.
Tim, isn't it the best? Isn't it one of the best feelings ever to get your book as an international edition?
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
I was blown out. The very first one that came through, it was a Norwegian copy of How to Be Brilliant. And I don't know why, but this Norwegian publisher, before it was even published, they bought the rights for it, and then and when it came through, and Brilliant is Briljant with a J in it. Briljant. And I was like all the time, how to be Briljant? How to be Brilliant?
Yeah.
Briljant. And I think practicing for the big Norwegian tour.
That never happened.
That never happened. We did actually. We went to Norway and back was the tour. We did one event and then came home. I haven't been back since.
Well, John Strelick, who had on the podcast last week, he's very big in Netherlands, which How to Be Rich and Happy has been published in Netherlands and Germany as well. Several other countries as well, which I won't bore you with now. But so he says they are the 2 countries that are really sort of itching for self-development. So get thee to Netherlands. I wouldn't.
It's easy. It's just down the road.
Yeah, it is for you, isn't it? Yeah, it's
absolutely.
Like you could almost like what's that thing where you go on the
train, boat, plane, aeroplane, aeroplanes.
I was thinking of the rip. What do they call it? Where you go down a wire. You could throw a wire over the channel. Forget it. Let's cut this bit out.
Do you know what? I know exactly what it's called, but your description.
Zipline. Zipline. Fuck you, Heppell. Yeah, zipline.
It's much more fun having you try to describe a simple thing.
He's got his arms in the air, even though he's on a podcast. I keep forgetting I'm not, but even though I can see myself. And every time I put my hands out, I think I see these girly bone arms.
Yeah, you need to muscle up, man.
Sorry?
You need to get your muscles a little bit bigger. No?
Yeah, so what about Ferguson then?
Well, since he left Man United, he hasn't done that much, and I think they're missing him.
And his nose is slightly less pink than it was when he was at Man United.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying about Ferguson.
Okay.
Definitely.
I was thinking, about motivational speaker. But you said that you're not comfortable with the name, the motivational speaker job or whatever.
Yeah, I'll tell you why. Because, I'm not 6'5" or 6'7" or whatever he's calling himself, with massive teeth and a voice like this. I'm just this little Geordie bloke who tells stories and gives people ideas. So I kind of have this thing about the motivational speaker being this, big, larger-than-life character, and rah, 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 and all that type of thing, and that's not me. So I call myself a professional speaker. I was very kindly described by somebody who was very much in the know as one of the top 3 professional speakers in the world, which I thought was a very kind description, and we've only used that.
Well, who are 1 and 2? We need to get them on the program.
Well, who do you think were 1 and 2?
Well, I think it depends. When you see the list, nearly always the highest paid one. I mean, like I saw Tony Blair demanded something like $5 million or something. Yeah.
Really?
Ex-politicians. Thatcher was demanding massive amounts. But I would imagine if we're doing it in the personal development field, I know it was Stephen Covey before his untimely demise. I would guess Tony Robbins, probably number 1. And
well, let me tell you, the top 3 was not measured on fees. That's for sure. I can guarantee you that. It was measured on ability. This person just said...
Then I would have had to have seen everybody, so it would be unfair of me to judge.
It would be very unfair, yeah. So let's just stick with me being in the top 3. I could be number 1, who knows?
Can I tell you, and I know who and I hope he's not, you don't see him as a competitor of yours, I'm sure you don't, but somebody else, the only other UK speaker that I really like is Steve McDermott. Are you familiar with him?
Yeah, I know him very well, yeah.
Do you know him?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Anyway, so moving right off of that. Yeah. What was that, Olivier?
Okay, so going back to this speaking, because you look very human. What? Okay, so they're doing like signs right now. Huh? Anyway,
Olivier's chatting to himself, isn't he?
Sorry, you broke up a little bit there, Olivier. I'm a bit confused because I was just talking about. So Steve, I've known Steve for years. He did a great book about failure. And about doing lots of stuff with that. That was good. And I've done a few events with him. So, and he's a good Northern lad as well.
So
sorry, Olivier, you were saying.
Yeah, I was saying, and I'm confused, and I'm sorry about my broken English as well. I'm trying my best to have a normal accent here. Regarding the motivational speaker or the speaker job that you're doing here, you said that you're not like big and with a loud voice and all this kind of stuff. You're just kind of human and simple and funny and do your stuff like this, right? And I was thinking about that in today's age where there's a lot of technologies, everything is about technology and stuff. You still need someone. You still need a man, right? And having this connection with people to move the audience, right? We still need this kind of very simple approach where you have this relationship to get the motivation. Do you see what I mean? This. Yeah.
I mean, most of our clients will book us to go and do an event with them. So they say they'll have 500 staff, do an event, and they book the speaker, and it's almost like you're going to do 1 hour or 90 minutes of the day of our conference. And I'll say, great, that's wonderful. What else are you going to be doing that day? Oh, well, we've got finance, we're going to give an update, and marketing want to talk about their plan for next year, and the chief exec has to do his bit, and the chairman's going to say a few words, and then HR want to talk about this exciting new development that we're going to have where people can actually get free gifts instead of pay rises. That's going to go down, and then you're on, and I'm kind of going, right, okay, could we help you with the conference a little bit? Because I think if you have such a responsibility when you stand on stage in front of 500 people that they need to leave with more excitement, more passion, more enthusiasm, more belief in themselves, more confidence, whatever it might be, than when you started. And most of the conferences that I go to, the vast majority of people leave people with less. They suck the life out of them. It's the death by PowerPoint. It's all that type of thing. So I think you're absolutely right in what you're saying, Olivier, about getting people feeling excited, getting people passionate, and you can only do that with somebody face to face. If you can, I've seen people set up elaborate video links. We did an event with one of the, I can't remember which one it was, but one of the big American speakers, and we were like the support act, and then he came on video and did his bit. I've forgotten his name. Who wrote Good to Great?
Jim Collins.
Jim Collins. It was Jim Collins. Yeah. So I did my woof woof. I did my bit. Not Jim Collins. That's the dog in your background there, Tim.
Yeah.
No comment.
Some sort of code there.
He's a good-looking fella. He's a good-looking fella, right? But everyone was really excited about seeing Jim Collins. But we were there live, and we did an hour beforehand, and then he did 2 hours, and people were drifting off and all that. And then one guy shouted out at the screen, "Get Michael Heppell back on." Right? I mean, Jim Collins is in America. He's not going to hear it. But I thought, yeah, it is. It's about being there. It's about being, live in front of people and presenting and building on the audience and getting the feedback. It's like, if you're a comedian, doing a TV show, yeah, great. People might laugh at it, but there's nothing like being live and stood in front of people.
Mm.
Well, I love how, and I know he didn't do this intentionally, it was very brief, and that's why I was laughing, how he called you Olivia. Because immediately, Olivia, he did, just very briefly, he called you Olivia, and I got Olivia Wilde in my mind, and I watched Rush the other night, the James Hunt, Nicky Lauda movie with Olivia Wilde. Oh, I'd be wild, I'll tell you.
Okay.
With Olivia. Anyway, let's move it right along. I've got to
Better than Olive.
No, it isn't actually. That's our pet name. So don't you go butting in there with that. Yeah. So I want to ask you about a story in your last book. Don't tell me what it's called.
The Edge.
Edges.
The Edge.
Thank
the Edge.
you.
How the
About
Best Get
edges,
Better.
yeah.
Published by Hodder, available on all remaining bookshops. Yeah.
That's the one. Yeah. But there was a great story in that book that made me howl. I just thought, I had no idea Michael Heppell was as childish as I am, and I pissed myself. I didn't laugh. I just got a bladder infection at the time. But it was a story where you tell Olivier about it. You go back to your original school.
Oh yeah.
And this is brilliant. I love it.
Well, it was a bit naughty, really, because I didn't enjoy my time at school at all. It could have been a lot better. Couldn't wait to leave. Wait to get out of there. And, however, they did give you a final school report, which is the one that you're meant to give to future employers and all that type of stuff. And mine was rank. It was rubbish. So just as well, I was going to work with my dad. He had a business, and I've got a job lined up. Otherwise, I probably would have still been unemployed now. But weird things happen, and I left school when I was 16, and here I am. I was at that time, I think it was about 44, 45, and they asked me to go back and do prize giving. And I thought, oh yeah, I'm honoured. I would love to go back to my old school and do prize giving. You do realise I didn't actually like school, and I really hated that school. And I went, yeah, that's fine, but you've done really well, and a lot of people know about you now, and would love it if you would come along. So yeah, fair enough. So I went through my bookshelves, and I found international editions of my books in 22 different languages, and I packed them all and I piled them all up at the back of the stage. And then they said, and now we've got a very special guest, Michael Heppell, a former student here at the school. And I stood up and I said, I'm so pleased to be here, and I'm surprised to be asked to be here, actually, because when I was at school I had a very interesting time, and perhaps one of the most interesting things was my final school report. And I just happened to have it with me, so I go in my pocket and I get this final school report. And I said, some of the comments here, for instance, in English, my English teacher just wrote, Michael will never do anything with the English language. And I guess she's right, as I've written 6 best-selling books, including a Sunday Times #1 bestseller, now published in 22 different languages. Here they are now, this big pile of books. And I said, but that was then. I mean, that was my old English teacher, Miss Lumsden, who I'm sure she must have retired by now. Well, I knew she was still a teacher at the school. And all the kids are going, no, she's still here. And I'm saying, no, you must be mistaken. It must be somebody else, because she was really old when she was my teacher. And they're going, no, she's here. And they're all pointing at this gruesome lady sat at the front. Sorry, Miss Lumsden.
Sorry.
And I don't think she's going to be listening. We've got 4 listeners, Michael. I don't think she's one of them. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But a lot of averages suggest it's not her. So
yeah, I'll start promoting this. Yeah, there'll be 14. So including Miss Lumsden. But the thing is, I tell that story a lot, and Christine says, you're going to have to let the Miss Lumsden thing go. Because it happened when you were 16. You need to let it go. And I'm like, I'm fine, I'm over it. And then we'll be talking to someone, and I'll say, oh, I had this English teacher once. Let me tell you what she said. And Christine's like, you still hold on to that, don't you? I need a coach to help me to get rid of it.
Well, I can coach you because this is how when I was about 15, so I left school. I know you won't believe this, people. Well, nobody's watching, listening, but I'm a little bit older than Michael. I left school at 15, so I was almost 16. And just before I left school, I was undecided whether to go into what over here in America would be called junior high, or would it be called high? I don't know. But anyway, the one where you go for 16 to 18. Yeah. So I went up to my history teacher and I said, I'm not sure whether to stay on and do my A-levels, as they would call them. And she looked at me and said, well, let's face it, Tim, you're not very academic, are you? And I said, no, not really. And then she wandered off. I thought, fuck, what does academic mean? I had to go and look it up. I swear to God, that's true. Excellent. And as I looked it up, I thought, she's probably right then. That's...
Brilliant.
Consequently, I left school at 15 and went to be a trainee chef, and that went horribly wrong as well. But let's not go on my downward spiral of depression and a waste of life.
Is that it? We've run. I thought we'd run out of conversation there. I thought it was the end.
No.
After your story there, I thought that's it. We're done.
Mate, we always drag it on. Sometimes we have 3, 4, 5 minute blank pauses. We always manage to
we'll all have a drink.
I haven't got anything planned this side of midnight. You have a quick drink. I'll text my wife for beer, and because it could be a while. Don't let people go this easy.
In a professional podcast, you have a rhythm and a pace and energy. We don't have any of that, so don't worry.
Do you know what we
energy?
Do you know what we do have?
No energy.
Do you know what Great Britain's just got this year?
Tell me.
Black Friday.
Oh.
Seriously?
Yeah.
It's not today though, is it?
Yeah.
Seriously?
We've got Black Friday. And if you want a laugh, go and have a little look on the on YouTube at Britain's doing Black Friday at Tesco at midnight in Blackpool. You've never seen anything like it. It's like a scene from 500. It's just absolutely extra. There are fights, and obviously, it's just a new idea for us to have Black Friday in the UK because nobody celebrated Thanksgiving yesterday. It was like, yeah. So forget that. Let's just have a sale. And they were doing the sort of crazy offers, get a TV for £100. And it is absolutely hilarious because people are not used to it. The police have been called. It's the leading story on the BBC News about how badly people have, how badly they've reacted to this idea of having Black Friday. But Asda say we're going to be better next year. They say we'll definitely be better next year because now we've had a bit of experience on it.
But even in the US, they're still fighting. You still have these pictures where people are just jumping all around.
Oh yeah, they're probably full on fighting. More than a kidney punch. This is like proper full on fights. They're not used to it. That thing where you're all pressed against the door, like that sort of thing, and then suddenly they pull the door open and they all come booling through. And it used to be the old January sales. Tim will remember that.
Yeah.
Used to have your January sale. Harrods January sale didn't start until January.
January, yeah. And then you got early, because my one of my wife's friends said to her about a week ago, she said, how many shopping days is it to Christmas then? He said, well, it's the same as it's fucking days to Christmas because the shops don't shut, do they? Because when we grew up as kids, it was just like, there's 14 shopping days because you take out the week, there's Sundays and what have you, other days when stuff wasn't open. It's
half day closing on a Wednesday.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, you just don't do that now. But that is so bizarre because over here, everybody spends all day Thursday giving thanks for everything they've got, and then all day Friday deciding it's not fucking enough and they've got to go out and get some more shit.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
brilliant.
I'm so grateful for everything, but I just need that 72. This 70-inch flat panel TV is not enough.
It's a big deal in America, isn't it? Thanksgiving, and we were on the train last night travelling up from London, and we get onto the 6:19 train from King's Cross which is where Harry Potter gets the train from, in case you don't know. International listeners, that's where Harry gets the train from.
Oh, my God.
Platform 12 and 3/4 or 11 3/4, 9 and 3/4, that one. Anyway, we luckily we weren't getting on that platform. We got our train, we pulled away, and normally our train journey home is 3 hours, and last night it took 8 because the lines were down, and it was a bit of a challenge. However, the nightmare scenario is this. There's an American family who are getting on the train at Peterborough, and they're going to Edinburgh. Okay,
Edinburgh.
They're going to Edinburgh.
Fantastic.
And so the train pulls into Peterborough, and the Peterborough, as we would say, and they get on the train, and you can hear them with their cases and stuff down at the end of the carriage. And then about 3 or 4 minutes later, there's this scream. And one of the members of staff on the train, he's got his arm around the seat. He says, "Don't worry, we're going to go and find the guard. Everything's going to be fine. Don't worry. Everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine." So they take this woman past us, and she's really, really crying. Go and find the guard. The guy who we know is one of the members of the staff on the train. He comes and goes, "What a nightmare, Michael. What a nightmare." I said, "Oh, what's happened?" He went, "Well, there's 6 of them travelling, and they've left one on the platform." I was like, "What?" He says, "She's left her sister on the platform. They're that busy getting the bags on." He says, his description was great. He went, "It was a proper Home Alone. Kevin!" Right? So I was like, "Oh, man, that's a nightmare." And she goes, "Oh, yeah, well, anyway, don't worry. We're going to look up. We're going to find a way to get them to meet up somewhere, whatever." So this family, they're all really, really upset. So they bring them into first class. They sit them all down, and then they brought out some food. Now, the first class food on the railways in the UK now is very, very good. I have to say, it's exceptional. Lovely wines, lovely food, and they've got all this type of stuff, and they're all there, and they're all eating, and they're having a pretty good time. And they find out their sister's actually all right, and she should be on a later train, all that type of thing. And then suddenly this woman starts to cry again. And the guy goes running up the aisle, and he goes, "Is everything all right? Is everything all right?" And she goes, "It's just that it's Thanksgiving." And the whole carriage is like, "Yeah, we don't get it. We don't really get it." But obviously someone had been nice to her and given her food on Thanksgiving. She'd lost her sister. Cheek.
Oh, that's Tim. You're paying attention behind you. What's happening behind you? You're always turning your head. I know. Is there any issue?
Well,
Tim, he's waiting for his beer.
Do you want? Yeah. I texted my wife for beer twice, and she hasn't responded. Look.
Oh,
that's crazy.
So you're waiting for beer. That's it. Okay.
Is that a new iPhone there, Tim? Is that an iPhone 6?
It is. It's 6 Plus. 6 Plus, mate.
6 Plus.
Don't
Have you seen my iPhone? See my iPhone?
No, what's that? Is it a 7?
No.
Okay.
What is that?
Can you see it?
I can see it. I can see it. I just don't know what it is.
Is it signed by an Apple guru? What?
That is customized by Jonathan Ive.
Jonathan who?
Jonathan Ive, the guy who invented the freaking iPhone.
Oh, okay.
Sir Johnny Ive has customized my iPhone with a Sharpie. With a Sharpie, he's drawn a cartoon of an apple on it. And he's the best bit, and he's the person.
Better get a fucker on eBay then.
he's the personal development lesson from it all, which I thought was very, very good of him. I was at a dinner, and he was at the dinner as well, and I thought, I'm not going to hang around here. I'm going to dive straight in. I'm going to be the person who goes and asks him to have a little chat, because everybody procrastinates when there's a famous guest at a dinner, and at the end of the night, it's like a big bun fight trying to get a hold of him. So I thought, I'm going to go in, we'll have a chat with him. So I went straight over, and I sat down next to him. I said, I'm sorry to bother you, Sir Jonathan, but I just wanted to say hello. And he went, "Oh, it's great to see you." And he shook my hand. "What's your name?" I said, "It's Michael." And I said, the real reason I've come over is I've just bought a new iPhone 6. And you could just see in his eyes, he thought, "Oh, shit, yeah, I've got a problem." And I'm going to ask him for some...
Yeah, it doesn't work.
I'm going to be... he thinks he's an Apple genius. Make an appointment at the Genius Bar, mate. But anyway...
Can you tell me how I use this app?
Yeah, absolutely. There's one at 2:15. No, anyway, he said. So I said, I've got a Sharpie pen. Would you mind signing my iPhone? And this is where it was so cool. He went, "Michael, no. It's not that I don't want to sign it. It's just that there are 2,000 people involved with the creation of the iPhone. And I think it'd be wrong for me to put my name on it as if it was me. And I went, wow, that's really quite something. And he went, what I can do, if you like, is I'll just draw a little picture on it for you. I was like, yes, that's even better. Yeah. He's going to customize my iPhone.
Yeah, so thank you, Pablo. Yeah.
So he drew
a shitload more. Yeah.
He drew a little cartoon apple on my iPhone for me.
Now I'm jealous. Now, God, Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Everybody wants a cartoon.
I've got a great story that's going to bore everybody else.
Oh shit! Don't start that.
Yeah. Shut up.
No.
Michael, are you familiar? Are you familiar with the Brian Clough, Nigel Clough? Old Derby County. No, I shouldn't go there. It's the best story ever that I've got to tell almost.
Do you know what
I'm not sure how it's going to translate.
I think it's one of those things that if thinking that we're recording this for a global audience who are listening in, I'll have promoted it as having, these gurus are interviewing me and we're sharing information, ideas that are going to improve the quality of your life. And I could be done for that. For false representation. But that's what I will be saying.
You will be done for.
And then suddenly you're going, do you know Brian Clough, Billy Clough, and Up the Duff? They were in the pub together. So I just think we should do a little bit more personal development, and then we should finish on a high.
On a high. You always finish on a high. Wow.
That's a professional for you.
Yeah, that's too professional actually. But finish on the high.
Yeah. So. I've got a couple of lines of crack down here to finish on a high myself personally, because my wife's not bringing me a beer, obviously, which is just outrageous. So you're right, I'm not going to tell my Billy Clough, Brian Clough, Up the Duff, fuck you, Heppell story, my best ever story.
Yeah!
No, you can tell me. The thing is, that story, I bet if I was to bump into you and say, tell me your great story, you'll still remember it, it'll still be there. Whereas right now, the world is suffering, and we can help with that suffering.
Look at that.
I wish nobody could see the video. Oh. I wish everybody could see the video. Yes, the world is suffering. So I do want to go back to Ferguson, and I want to go back to you. So you're not going to go there, and I don't want to go there. I don't want to talk about the race. I don't want to talk about the outcome of the grand jury. I don't want to talk about any of that stuff. I want to talk about just tolerance. And just the fact, so I wrote a post on it, and I hesitated a long time in writing a post on it because I didn't want to look like I was just newsjacking and trying to create interest, when really I think it's a serious point. And I basically put, at the end of the day, in this country, every country in the world, there's certain people that are subjugated, that are certain people that are treated more poorly because of the race, because of the colour, because of but you can go from people that are, from gay people to people that are born with disabilities, to people that are born looking ugly, to old people, to this sort of discrimination happens across the board. And I just said that I think not that long ago there was a couple whose daughter was murdered here in Orlando, and when they came out on the steps of the courtyard after the guy being sentenced to life in prison or whatever, and they just said they forgave him. And I was just like, holy shit, that is just so amazing, that is so incredible. It doesn't mean say you've got to condone somebody or anything, but just to forgive somebody, just say, okay, well, he screwed up. He made a decision based on the information he had at the time, and it was obviously the wrong thing for 99.9999% of the population. And it's so I wrote this post, and this woman came back and she copied and pasted a little bit out of the post where I said about we need more tolerance and we need more compassion towards people. And she said, I've tried compassion and I've tried tolerance and it doesn't work. And I've yet to actually respond to that. And she said, I'm a woman of colour working in an environment where not many people are like that. And I've tried that and it doesn't work. And I'm like, but what's the alternative? I don't want to drag this down too much, but seriously, what's the alternative? Is there anything better than that? I have dragged it down, haven't I?
No. It's do you know what? It's like a dinner party, this, isn't it? So we've had a glass of champagne. We've had our food. We've had the cheese. We're having a little nightcap now, and somebody starts a serious conversation. and everybody
goes to bed,
and everybody feels they should get involved and have an opinion. But I'm a bit too pissed. No, I tell you, it's interesting what you say, because I am so lucky that everything in my life is so wonderful. Now, I know some people who have a lot more than me, but at the same time, they feel persecuted. They feel there are things wrong, things that they deserve to have, whatever. And I think that whole I know it's a cheesy thing, but just that being grateful for what you do have and being grateful for what's available for us right now. I mean, look at this. We're recording this conversation right on our Apple Macs, and it's all going to be merged together, all that type of stuff. And we've got this fabulous technology, and it's all great. But you know what? I'm sitting there and I'm looking at my Mac, and I'm thinking, I might need to get an upgrade with this one. It's not quite as good or not quite as fast as it used to be when it's in garage
is faster.
Yeah, and it's a weird thing, isn't it, that we don't stop for a moment and just really appreciate what we do have. And isn't it remarkable what we've got in the world? And I think it's a YouTube video that's been going on for quite a bit now. Somebody being interviewed, and he says we just don't appreciate what we have. And he's talking like he's at 32,000 feet up in the sky, and there's somebody bitching and complaining because the Wi-Fi's slow.
Yeah.
32,000. Well, you're in a plane at 32,000 feet.
Louis C.K. did a. Louis C.K. He's not ever so big in the UK, but we did a thing about like this phone's a piece of shit, because it doesn't connect in 2 seconds. It's like, no,
exactly.
Seriously, look what you've got in your hand. You've got a piece of plastic that allows you to talk to somebody the other side of the world, and you're saying it's a piece of shit because it won't connect in a certain black spot or whatever.
And I think, and going back to the Ferguson thing, I don't believe that people set out to do evil things generally.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
But sometimes some evil stuff happens, and I think that for me, humanity is when somebody says, "I understand that happened, and my reaction to it is going to be this. It's going to be thought through. I'm going to discuss something. I'm going to try and understand something." And the big challenge, of course, is it just kicks off. But we all have our own version of that as well. I don't know what it feels like to be a black person in an area where there's those types of challenges. I've been close to it once with the reverse of it. My wife, Christine, she's black. So she grew up in a town where there was no other black folk, the only black person in that whole town. And she, she was brought up by her grandparents, so she never met her father, who was Nigerian. She all those challenges. She used to loads and loads of things, and she'd try and explain to me what it was like. And I couldn't get my head around it. I really couldn't get my head around it. But then we got married, and I had to go and do some work in America. And I was in Washington, D.C. And I went to the cinema, and I thought, I'm just going to pay to go and watch whatever's going to start. So I went and I said, is there anything about just to start? And they went, yeah, there's a film called Clockers, which I think is a Spike Lee film.
Spike Lee.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And I went, oh, great, I'll go and see that. And I went in and I sat down, and it had already just started, so I kind of snuck in. And when police officers were being shot, there was cheers. And when there was like certain levels of violence, certainly there was real cheers, it was like, whoa. And then eventually at the end of the movie, the lights came on. I was the only white person in the audience.
Oh, my God.
And it was that moment when I just thought, whoa. And nobody else was bothered. Nobody was looking at me or anything like that. But I felt it, and I thought, that's how Christine feels. That's how Christine feels at times. And just to kind of have that moment of trying to understand, I think is perhaps what we should perhaps do a little bit more. Not perhaps, we definitely should do it a little bit more.
Yeah. I agree. About 4 or 5 years ago, my best friend at the time was the general manager for Virgin Megastore in downtown Orlando, and he got us tickets to go and see Natalie Bedingfield. Do you remember? She had that one big hit, and her brother Daniel Bedingfield was fairly famous. And we went in there late, and we got in there late, and we watched this concert. I'm like, I'm not really sure about this. And so we're all in horror. And then the lights went up at the end, and we're the only people there over the age of 30. that must have felt just. In fact, we were all over 40. Everybody else was about 12. Anyway, probably not quite the same, but you said finish on a high note.
Yay!
So,
high note.
So
she's
what
terrible. She wore a nice leather pants.
He is. Let's finish on a high note. I'm gonna take over the interview a bit now because you two aren't really very good at this, are you?
Absolutely.
So let's do this. Right?
Absolutely.
A lot of people already at this time start talking about what they. What's the date today? It's the 28th of November.
Yes.
Yeah, 28th of November.
Yes.
And people now are already talking about what they're going to do next year, right? Which is a massive cop out because there's 30 odd days left of this year. Mm-hmm. So what are you going to do for the rest of this year that's going to be brilliant?
What am I going to do?
Yeah,
and then,
both of you.
Yes, Justin. Well, for me, because I'm a megalomaniac, as Olivier pointed out, I am just next week reintroducing my daily meditation, which has slipped a bit over the last week or so for reasons that I won't bore you with. That's not normally a major issue for me because I do tend to meditate most days, but I'm really stepping it up. I've hired a meditation teacher. So even life coaches needed coach. She's actually a life coach as well, but she's an expert in meditation. In fact, she was a guest on the podcast 2 weeks ago, Meredith Hook. She's fantastic. And also I'm going back to the UK to see family for the first time I will see some of my family for the first time in about 5 years. And
wow.
My wife will see a niece who's 2, who she's never seen, who lives in Australia. She'll see a nephew who's 4, who she saw once when he was 6 months, and a mum and dad and all those lot for the first time in several years.
Brilliant.
So I am pumped about going back to Blighty, having some good fish and chips. We can get decent curry over here, but we can't get fish and chips. People say, I found a good fish and chip place. And you go and try and it's like, fuck, no, this is shit. And it's always the same. You just can't get it over here.
So when are you coming over?
We fly in Christmas Day. So,
brilliant.
Which is great. We're there for 10 days. So I'm
wonderful.
Very looking forward to it. So unfortunately, my mum and dad are no longer alive. They passed 3 or 4 years ago for my mum and about 10, which is a shame. But I'm looking forward to seeing my sisters and my rest of my family. So.
Brilliant.
What about you, Olivier? How are you going to be brilliant between now and the end of the year?
You know, I like the fact that just Michael took over and makes professional interview right now, and I think this is brilliant.
Unlike what we
is brilliant. But actually, I would like to say to Michael something. You know, this is how it is, and I think this is good actually because it's different, right? And there's so. Coming back to what has been said before, there's we think that there's a way to do stuff which is kind of set up like how should you do an interview, right? You know, interview has to be like professional and you need to do your research and everything. But what I like with podcasts, and as you and I'm sure you've been to podcasts, Michael, it's you have this freedom and liberty to do whatever you want and say whatever you do, whatever feels like it's right and be authentic, right? And I like that a lot. And what we can offer here with this podcast is to be different. There's so many other YouTube podcasts, in the radio, whatever, that are very professionals, and they offer exactly the same thing, you know? Here what we can do is being as silly as we want. And shitty as we want.
Out for not being professional.
Exactly. It's a cop-out.
We don't need to practice on being professional. We don't need to be brilliant.
Do you know,
we need to be brilliantly crap.
No, but
it's a bit more interesting, isn't it? It's a bit more interesting that it's like, just listen to these 3 blokes having a chat in the pub.
Exactly. But
eavesdropping on them. And then after about 5 minutes, realising that their conversation's shit, but there's
Bollocks.
not much else going on in the pub, so we're going to keep hovering around with them. That's what it's like. I love it.
I love it, but, you know, I'll go back to what you said, is I think, you know, how do you, and you asked this question, which is a very interesting question about the world is suffering, right? The world is suffering. What can we say, right? What we can say is actually, look at us. You can be yourself. And this is one thing that we always said with Tim. By being authentic and open and say your mind and speak and be open, you know, this is how we can change stuff. And by putting something which is that different and to say, be yourself. What? Serious? Sorry, is French. Yeah. Now, to answer your question, what I will do?
Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be good because it'll be Christmas before we get to it.
Okay. So let me tell you something that I will tell you, and I will blow your mind. I'm going to Brazil, right? And I will attend an ayahuasca ceremony. Do you know what ayahuasca is?
He's got some tickets for the World Cup in the late Oscar. He sold them by this guy. I've got his tickets.
It sounds like he's saying, I'm going to that square, yeah.
No.
But it's not that, is it? It's the...
Ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is a drug.
Ayahuasca.
It's a shamanic drug. Yeah. It's a shamanic drug. It's a dimethyltryptamine, right? And it's basically something. It's one of a very, very powerful drug used in ceremonies by shamans in South America. And these drugs, basically, when you ingest that, you basically go to your deepest sphere, right? You just go to your subconscious, and you just basically, look at what you refuse to look. Basically, it's a form of coaching as well. So this is what I will do in Brazil in 2 weeks' time.
What Olivier really means is he's going to get off his tits and call it coaching. I'm going to take these hallucinogenics. I'm just getting in touch with my coaching side.
This could be like his tribute one where it all goes terribly wrong, and this was the last thing that he did before he went off on one.
Michael, are you familiar with Ram Dass, who wrote "Be Here Now"?
No, I'm not.
Ram Dass. Okay, well, look him up. He's a real guru from the 70s. But Ram Dass, I can't remember what his original name now. Olivier, can you remember
Richard Alpert.
That's right, Richard Alpert. Yes.
See why he changed it.
And him and a friend. This was going back in the late 60s when he was at Harvard, and he was friends with Timothy Leary, who invented ecstasy. And they decided that they wanted to go down to Mexico because they'd heard the best hallucinogenic mushrooms were grown in Mexico. So they hired a plane to go down to Mexico, and the two of them, they'd had 2 flying lessons between them, and they hired a plane and actually flew down to Mexico just to get high on mushrooms. That was the dedication to taking drugs.
That's brilliant. That is brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. The book, the Harvard Social Club, is fantastic. It's just about their experiences with taking acid and mushrooms to try and... They believed they were making contact with God. They genuinely believed it, and these are really intelligent people. But listen, I'm gonna wrap things up now.
Good.
I'm gonna wrap things up. But that's what I thought. That's what I thought I'd do. Good. I could see one leg of Michael halfway out the door. So
did you hear about? I did have a little interruption there, and it was my daughter who's home for the weekend, and she's kind of going,
Dad, I miss you. I've never seen you.
How long are you going to be? How long are you going to be?
Yeah,
all that type of stuff.
Dad, when did you divorce the family to talk to these 2 idiots?
I've just said that one of my big things, I want to be a brilliant parent. It's one of my top 3 things.
I know.
And I'm neglecting my wife, neglecting my child to talk to you two. Sorry, go on.
Listen, let me just say, mate, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. When we actually make a go of this in a few years' time, we'll have you back. I'd love to have you back. I love you to bits. I know you do. I'm very grateful for your help in introducing me into coaching, which I didn't really go into, and I'm not going to now. So for me, thank you very much, and I hope you come back, and I'll leave it to Olivier to shut things down.
Really? To me? Michael, a pleasure. You're a great person. I can see all the humanity behind that, And I think Tony Robbins should shit his pants because you get after him.
Yeah.
Oh, that's going on my website.
Just because he's got a slight bowel problem.
That's going to go on my website. Forget the quote from best speaker I've ever seen, best person I've ever at our conference.
Tony Robbins shitting his pants.
Shit his pants.
Yeah, and I second that. Seconded by Tim Brownson.
Thanks
a lot, mate.
Thank you, Michael.
I really appreciate you coming on. It's been a pleasure having you.
Be brilliant. Have a great rest of the year. Lots of love.
I do. Thank you.
Cheers.
Yeah, please.
down.